cloud of doubt is slowly eating XRP holders, and you may be standing next to lose because of it. But before you surrender your accumulated XRP to these manipulators, do digest these information well. Yes, there are negative news which comes out eventually. At the same time, you have positive information surrounding you. These are the real information which you have to understand. And then the real flow of money and its direction shows you they are diverting the cash flow towards DLT based settlement solution. And when they say that, you can see where it is all going towards. But for me, it's kind of clear that it is moving towards XRP. And these information, these updates are like, adding into my XRP encyclopedia, where everything is again reconcreted. Now, these information from IMF, BIS, and other documents which I am about to show is one of important and key information which is really reconcreting these evidences which I have previously presented here. But you have to understand that's not all. If you go through and watch the entire video, you can see all of this information playing out in your portfolio. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where we discuss crypto and science behind investing regularly. If you saw value for your time, please do support the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. If you would like to give any comment, that would be appreciable. If you would like to extend your support, you can use PayPal, Patreon, or the XRP wallet address. And if you would like to gain more value for your time, you can use that link towards Patreon, which will allow you to unlock more value for your portfolio. Now, we will go through these documents. It will be lengthy, but we will cover it in a short aspect, and that's why you are here. Before jumping into these fundamentals, I would like to take you guys through these technicals first, because in the last couple of videos, we haven't actually went through that. So if you look at this, you can see the trend line support and resistance area with the standard deviations, like, where the stop losses are kicked out. You can argue like, say, these trend line support is being put, and those guys who are trading this market would be keeping their stop losses below this one in this trend line. And now the price came back. It is hitting that low. Now it seems that the price is going to move to the upside, and chances are, yes, there are supports at the bottom if in case the manipulators manage to push the price to the downside. But I personally think that buyers would be pushing higher from here. Why I personally think that? Because if you step a bit out and look at the same, now you can see the small arrow which I have put is the short-term direction within that pattern in the price, and the thicker arrow is showing you the longer time frame trend, which is kind of started from early 2020, and it's still valid. We are nearing the end of 2020 and we are still in a bullish trend for an entire year. That is actually a change of trend, and if you look at the RSI and MACD, it really supports the fact that bulls are active. Now, if you zoom out a little bit, instead of going into a daily, if you jump into a 3-day chart, we explained these critical levels, right? And at the same time, we told in weekly that the RSI and MACD is going to the down upside. But on weekly, you actually got a cross to the downside on the MACD, which shows you that there is a chance for bearishness. But as I just told, it's been 1 year since we are moving to the upside. And when you get these kind of crosses to the downside, it usually means it's a correction of that trend within that pattern. Now, why do I say that? Because if you zoom a little bit in from that weekly chart into a 3-day chart to the MACD, chances are that you are seeing that the MACD got across to the downside, which we highlighted on the same day that there is bears active, watch out. And then now it's showing you that within the positive territory, MACD is kind of rounding up and the chances are it may cross to the upside. Now, remember, there would be pressure on that from the weekly as it's crossed to the downside. So if it bounces to the downside, then watch the RSI. If it is still maintaining this trend line, we are going for a hell of a ride to the upside. Now, if it don't, then it's cautious. But chances are we are going to the upside with a bounce from the RSI. Why? Because on the monthly chart, we broke to the upside, as you can see here with this green shaped candle. Then we haven't actually came back to that bottom. Usually within this bear market, what happens is you get a bump like this and eventually the price comes back to where it started. So that's like 100% retrace. In this particular trend, it hasn't happened. Think about that for a moment. So something is changing. And the monthly RSI has already crossed to the upside and it is still maintaining that. Just we haven't got that bullish strength in the RSI, and once we start to correct a little bit upside, continuing this pattern to the upside, it's going to be madness of FOMO entering into this area. Now with that said, when you jump from the technical to the fundamentals, there are a lot of positive news. Where should we start? Okay, showing you this first. If you look at this news, it shows blockchain makes inroads against cross-border payments friction. So they are always talking about DLT and the friction in the cross-border payments. So you are talking about financial institution using blockchain as a tool to get through that. And what are they highlighting? RippleNet. And it's highlighting that a bank has went into RippleNet cloud-based system. We went through that previously, right? Now, why are we going in through that? Because if you continue reading, you can understand designed for business without experience in cryptocurrency or blockchain. They allow them to get into this technology and take out maximum benefits. Because if you look back on June, IMF put this one out. DLT experiments in payments and settlements. So if you see, they are talking about DLT for cross-border payments and settlements. When you read through it, you kind of get an easy picture that they are using it to clear fund, send cryptocurrency and settle funds. So you are not just talking about using the software from Ripple. You are talking about settlement using that technology. Now this one shows Bank of England speech notes that cross-border payments, faster payments may include DLT. Now what does IMF clearly highlighted back in June, and what is Bank of England highlighting right now in October? You have to actually look through this stuff, because why? When central banks are coming up with this, say for example, this is from BIS, and when they talk about digital currencies and global currencies, it really gets interesting. Because if you read that highlighted area, it shows you clearly that we are into this. First, they highlight different solutions of traditional players for cross-border payments, and then they come here. But new technologies such as distributed ledger technology could be supportive for newly applied settlement infrastructures, which may help to reduce transaction cost in complex economic processes by relying inter alia on smart contracts. So now that there is smart contracts coming out for XRP ledger, read clearly about what they have talked about settlement infrastructure. DLT could be supportive for newly applied settlement infrastructure. So there is a settlement infrastructure which they are looking at, which is going to be going live with the smart contracts. Therefore, banks and their customers might ask for a new form of digital programmable money, and the CBDCs are coming out. If you read further, you can understand that is called CBDC. So with that, as you can see, the Chinese, Cambodian, Bahamas, everyone is working on that. Some are rolling it out. Others will eventually jump into that wagon. Why? Because the policy makers are highlighting this need for providing clear standards, regulations for this technology. Because until recently we never saw like regulators stepping in, making it so fast and trying to give that clarity. But right now, if you go through these articles and look at how it's changing, it's really interesting. Say the proposed regulations on the markets in crypto assets. Just a couple of months back, the Europe is kind of increasing their perspective towards this one. It shows MICA proposes to harmonize the rules on crypto assets across EU. It would allow issuers to offer their crypto assets across EU. So now, once this goes live, not just in the paper, and actual financial terms, right? If it goes live, XRP is going to have high probability of going, having that significant adoption rate, because the stringent requirement would be there for stable coins. Why? Because if the stablecoin is backed by dollar, they won't actually use it much on the euro terms, right? Instead, what they would like for that cross-border relations would be a neutral asset. And that's when, institutions like VolunteerPay highlights. Currently, for cross-border payments, you have SWIFT. Now, yes, there are others who kind of competes with it, and they highlight Ripple in their website. Now, when you go through that entire system, you can see they are having different channels. Yes, but if you look at the innovation of APIs for this cross-border payments, they have previously highlighted it directly towards Ripple and XRP, how it can be used for the settlement. Now, remember, this is being highlighted along with Visa, Swift new product GPI, which is just like, a little bit of renovation of their old house, so nothing more. Now, if you actually jump into these documents, there are a lot to catch up with. Say 2 parts to tomorrow's money. If you are leading your way towards that future of money, then yeah, you may be benefiting from this. But if you are not looking at this, you have to understand the geopolitical scenario first, then the macro economics, because they clearly highlights what happened back in 2008 with Bitcoin white paper and what's happening right now back in that recession. After that recession, this came out and it started getting adoption. And right now, governments are clearly looking at this one. The digital dollar project highlights, if you still want to remain as the dominant power in the world for US, they need to go digital instead of still using that cash. So in this document, they kind of clearly highlight the use cases for going digital, using this technology for atomic settlement. Now that kind of gives you that interoperability layer to communicate between different ledgers. And how it can be programmed? They would be using smart contracts to program that to get that real-time gross settlement 24/7, 365. So that is where we are all moving, because the customers are asking for more and more. Now this is a little old document. It was published back in October 2018. Now, why are we going back into this? Because we saw what is happening right now from IMF, BIS, everything published this year. So when you look at that and look at what was happening back that time with Volante and other solutions which were focusing on digital age, they were clearly on their point. Because if you jump into, say, page number 6 of this document, you get here, clearing and settlement, complexity on the rise. And that time they were highlighting R3, Ripple and others along with MasterCard and Swift's GPI product. And what are they still talking about? Instant payment settlements. And when you go through that, you can see clearing and settlement initiatives. It's not just that software they're talking about the settlement initiatives. And Swift GPI, existing traditional legacy system which has a huge fan base, and then the government initiative from Europe, after which they are highlighting Ripple there. Now, looking at all of those first and then looking at the other end of the technology, they are highlighting R3 Coda, Hyperledger, Ethereum, all of which can be connected to Ripple directly because of the ability which RippleNet provides. That's the interoperability between any ledger. So if you really think deep into that, it's kind of getting so interesting because they are looking at DLT based infrastructures at a time when ISO based standards are going live. And which DLT based infrastructure is on the lead with that standard? Look at now, it's clear to look here. They are talking about clearing and settlement with DLT based infrastructure and the standard. And the DLT technology which they are highlighting here all can use XRP, because XRP ledger with ILP is universal. So there is no much question there. Now if you move in the same document, you get a lot more aspects, but if you jump into page number 12, it shows you this. As we move, they talk about a lot of different aspects, technologies which can be used, but they highlight this. Most prominent of all is Ripple. So they are talking about XRP, that settlement aspect. Now why are they looking at this? Because if you look at different countries, all of them are trying their max to come up with a digital currency. And if you look, 2018, they highlighted this. Right now, China did that successfully, and then Sweden. Others are still working on it. Do you see how this events back in 2018 is resonating clearly with the current development? Because they already planned in this manner. They did their research and showed us what are the possibilities. And if you move on further, you can get other information from the same document, but we'll actually jump out of that one to the next one. And it shows the Europe's proposed pilot regime for digital security infrastructure. It's a game changer for the security tokens. Why it is a game changer? Because it's going to provide new regulations. First thing, because the regulatory uncertainty is a barrier to development, because they are all looking at adopting DLT in securities and other markets. So automatically, even in securities market, the back-end process of settlement is still there and valid. So yet to date, there remains very little use of DLT in regulated financial markets. Why? Because they don't first have the regulations so that they can adopt this technology there. So as you move in this one, you kind of get to see requirements and relaxations for operations. For example, investment firms and market operators may ask to be able to admit trading DLT transferable securities that are not recorded in their current securities regulation. Why? Because unless they get that regulations, they can't actually do that. But still, you can see banks and financial institutions slowly coming out to adopt this technology and to provide this. So these are some of the aspect in that end of regulations and all. But if you look at the real updates, which is happening, the real adoption, it is getting even cooler from that particular point. So firstly, if you look at the article itself, which is showing that there is issues or uncertainty associated with XRP, and they even kind of directly, blatantly states that it would be performing low in 2021. When I hear this, as I was here back in 2017, before the bull run, I saw a lot of news stating that XRP from that level, say 0.17, 0.18, 0.2 level, it's going to drop to 0.07. It was a lot of FUD at that time, and many fell for that. Even I actually dropped a lot of XRP positions, which I accumulated over a long time with a little bit of profit, say 5%, 10%. And just after a month, I saw a huge pump, and then I was like, what just happened? So the manipulators tried to push us out, and we were so foolish, we fell for it. And now again, this is something which is coming out in that manner. Then, even when they are 100% ready to go, because their product is absolutely cool and ready, it's not an experimental product now, but the regulations are keeping it outside, and that is the reason being highlighted as the chances that it may push the price to the downside in the next year. Why? I don't actually think so. If they highlight that at a time when governments across the globe are going for this technology, Hong Kong will require all cryptocurrency trading platforms to be regulated. So if there are unregulated schemes surviving and being profitable, it's going to be bashed. So the regulations are coming out. It's not that slow. And Michael actually sent me this one, which highlights Flair says XRP Ledger will enter 10 billion market with launch of smart contracts. What did I actually highlight when we were going through these documents? The programmable money with smart contracts and the ability to use that DLT infrastructure to solve this issue of friction within the payments, especially the cross-border payments. So if you see how things are actually evolving, even the latest news kind of shows you that they are looking at providing more capital. Now the pandemic has actually kicked the butt of many economy. They're trying to revive it in one or the other way. And Brian from OCC highlights this. American leadership in financial services depends on taking fintech more seriously. Maybe someone is listening to him, and hopefully it's going to end well for us, with the hope that the market cycle is going to turn and we are really watching that turnover from bearish market into a bullish rally. Hope you guys received value for your time, and if you did, please do support the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. If you would like to extend your support, you can use PayPal, Patreon, or the XRP wallet address given in the description below.